Hey everyone, this is the Men Mass Media Group, and we'll be talking about New York reparations, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these brief messages. Welcome back, everyone. So today we're going to be reading A5603. That's the New York State Bill. All right. And before we do that, let's actually go and look at some highlights from the last New York State Commission meeting. And then we're going to go into reading. All right. So check it out.
Hi, first I want to thank the Commission for having everyone here tonight, and I am appreciative of the attempt that's being made at reparations. However, I'm very concerned about the language that's being used, in particular when we're saying African descent, because African descent can mean anyone from the continent of Africa when we know that we're speaking about people that are Black and that racializes things, and I'm concerned about that because the Supreme Court has ruled against racializing reparations of any sort twice now. We see that through the dismantling of DEI and through affirmative action. So this commission needs to be very careful about racializing reparations. And the only way that reparations can be actually paid is that reparations is a specific monetary payment for a specific harm that was done to a specific people for a specific crime.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. If you'd like to continue.
If I may, we don't typically respond to people when they presented their testimony because we like to take it and give it thought and consider it. I do need to correct something for you. This is not the Commission's language. Your issue, and everybody who is concerned about language that says persons of African descent should be considered with respect to reparations, your issue is with the New York State Legislature.
It's on the website.
No, let me explain to you why. The information on the website builds from what we are mandated by the legislation to do. May I finish, please? Just let me finish, and then you can fire back at me. The legislation authorizing this commission to study the impact of slavery in New York State specifically, expressly states that we are to examine the impact of slavery and the impact of racism on people of African descent. It is the language in the legislation. We are not mandated, or allowed, I should say, we are not permitted to do anything but what the legislation actually authorizes us to do. And so I appreciate the points that you're making. I'm not challenging your concerns. What I am telling you is that your issue is not with the commission. Your issue is with the New York State Legislature. So, if you want to challenge the commission and what the commission is doing, you have to work through the state legislature. You're going to have to go and actually fire at the New York State Legislature. Those who actually wrote the legislation, the bill, and the legislators that passed it. We are authorized to do what is mandated. Anything short of, anything overreaching, actually may throw out all of the work that is done.
And this is actually my first time here. I was given notice that this was happening today. So one of the things I think we also need to know is that this bill originally originated with Charles Barron. Once he was out of the City Council Assembly, they stole his bill and they made it into what they wanted to. So if we really want to amend this bill, tell New York lawmakers to support bill number A5603 for corrective reparations. So everyone who has a problem with the language and the way that this bill is, you can support bill A5603. I also was very concerned listening to he's not here anymore, but the young gentleman from Red Hook, talk about communal reparations, right? This language and the fact that they take people they weaponize our people against us, right? They take those who are the heads of organizations or the heads of institutions, people who we respect, like Mr. Ron Daniels, and they put them before us. They give them their dirty work, and they send them out before us because they know that we respect you, right? And if you say this is what it is and you recommend it, 9 times out of 10 we'll go along with it. So I just want us to be very aware that don't allow them to weaponize you. If you know that they gave you a legislation that is flawed, why would you bring it to the people and represent it? When this is very, very serious. And so being a Black American, a foundational Black American from here, and understanding all of the issues and nuances that come from the whole discussion around Pan-Africanism and us just recognizing Blackness throughout the world, that we are all Africans, but also understanding that our relationship to America is very complex and that we are owed reparations as those who worked and tilled the lands here. My grandmother, up until we can record, right, were slaves and then sharecroppers.
Good evening. My name is Rashawn Stovall. How are y'all doing today? I'll make this as simple as possible. Recently, I've traced my lineage to this land. I'm just cracking into the 1700s on my father's side. And we're back to Henry County, Alabama, the county that was created 1 month before Alabama became a state. We're talking tracing directly to territories here. Foundational on both sides, eight sides. 8 sides. This is lineage based. Now, I may say something, a hot take here. Not all Black people deserve or will get reparations. I'm gonna repeat that. Not all Black people will get reparations. If you have not traced yourself to harm in a lineage-based trace in this nation, then it was a privilege and a choice to come to these here United States. After the Civil War, my family aggressively got property from ex-slave masters, 1,521 acres in Henry County, Alabama. I'm gonna repeat that. Got property from the slave masters, take that right up off of them. For it to be half of the property right now to be taken up under eminent domain through Montgomery, Alabama. As my family, fast forward to now, as my family moved up here at the tail end of the Great Migration. Again, not all Black people will get reparations. I'm bringing you tidings from New Jersey right here in support of people who are foundational in New York seeking reparations, while they have people who have chosen to come to these here United States of America and asking for reparations as well. Now, you may receive reparations from where your lineage traces from, and I recommend that you seek that path. Because this path here is for people that can trace their lineage to before America was America. You're looking at the realest American you've ever seen in your life. It's a difference between an American and a U.S. citizen. It's a difference between an American and a U.S. citizen, and it is an abomination to my ancestors, the Kynes and the Ingrams on my mother's side, and the Stovalls and the Frasers on my father's side. We had no choice. We had no choice. We stayed ground and fought.
Did you get a chance to sign in?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thanks.
Brother Carriot, peace, peace. Grace, motion, and peace to the tribe. Reparations here in the great state of New York are for Black Americans only. Reparations consist of one component, and that is direct cash payments. Bottom line. Thanks to Flying United, get off the plane. Keep your programs, your housing vouchers. We've seen this movie back in California. We as Black Americans can trace our lineage pre-1776, where we can prove our harms with legal documentation. Slave schedules, wills, in U.S. Census records. Our ancestral homeland is the South. We migrated up from Georgia, Alabama, Virginia, and the Carolinas. We didn't immigrate from the Caribbean, and definitely not Africa, Ron Daniels.
Come on, Carrie.
This isn't divisive. This is delineation, and it's here to stay. Reparations for Black Americans only here in the great state of New York. Gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Carey.
Who should not get. Without your recommendations, then the report will not have one of the most important elements of it. And I believe that if we are organized enough, some of y'all have come to every single hearing, and it is dope to see people organized around something we believe in. It is a beautiful thing. It would be really helpful if we could also get some sense, in addition to everything else you want to share, as to what you think reparations should look like at the end of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, if you can come onto the mic and just repeat share your name. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. My name is Sean McCauley. I'm a Black American. I think that the forefront of this should be done by everyone, wherever you are from. Sue that country that imposed this upon you, right? My recommendation would be not only for cash payments, but also for no taxes for however amount of years we're claiming for. I don't think it's only just for slavery. I also think what needs to be accounted for is the Jim Crow era, because that's where your redlining or your redistricting, all those things occurred from. Now that we were free, we were not allowed to compete. So any businesses that we own, no taxes. Individuals pay no individual taxes as well. Now we're able to compete and have those who want to invest with our businesses, they get tax-free money as well. So we make the economy come through us, right? Any one of us that want to attend any local state, city colleges, we go for free. If they have the budget to do these welfare to work programs and send people to trade schools, things like that, we get that for free. Our Black farmers get those same subsidies for free. So those are laws that we can enact, we can put in place, because everybody debates around if we get cash, no one else get cash. That's really what it's about. However, if we fight for some of those laws to be put in place, now we can level the playing field and actually make it more advantageous for us.
My name is Divine Prince. I'm the president of the U.S. Freemen Project, and I'm a Brooklyn boy. And I heard a Brooklyn songwriter say, every day I wake up, somebody got a problem with Hov. Who knew that somebody would be the entire New York Reparations Community Commission? Ain't no love in the heart of the city and in the heart of this commission. Imagine voting to punish the most committed members of the community to this process, voting to Jim Crow us to the back of the proverbial bus, the back of the speaker's line, when you're supposed to be honoring our ancestors who were Jim Crow survivors. I'm disappointed that the vote passed unanimously. See, we expect these underhanded tactics from Dr. Daniels and Daniel Favors Esquire. They're here to fight against the Black American community in favor of their Pan-African American community. They advocate for our ethnocide. Dr. Ron is on record at a Fulton County reparations hearing saying that today's Afro-immigrant is tomorrow's African-American. And Commissioner Lurie is on record saying that Black Americans need to fight for immigration because we can and could be deported like the Jamaican side of her family. You know what we don't hear, though? Anyone citing all the studies and reports dealing how immigration as a whole, including Afro-immigrants, negatively affect Black Americans and help to usher in gentrification. Based on the racial of African descent language of this bill, that's a conflict of interest. Frederick Douglass, A. Philip Randolph, Barbara Jordan, and Coretta Scott King all advocated for the protection of Black Americans from the negative effects of immigration. Today is the Statue of Liberty's birthday. She was gifted to the USA to honor Black Americans that forced this country to recognize our emancipation. In 1987, Reagan and right-wing white supremacy takes our day and makes it National Immigrant Day and helps to propagate the narrative that America was built by immigrants, thus erasing our connection to Lady Liberty. Now we're dealing with the same erasure from left-wing white supremacy. So we're stuck on the ABCs because this commission is built on a faulty foundation, and you refuse to change it even though the legislation allows it. And we were told by the authors of both bills that you would change it once you saw fit. So I sound the same because the truth don't change. Race-based reparations are morally, legally, and historically unjust. Global unity based on melanin has never meant let's follow a religion that claims we're all just Africans in different countries. The U.S. Freemen Project created a presentation that details the reparations movement has always been lineage-based. It's not until Dr. Ron's modern Pan-African org show up that you get this conflation of Black Americans and Afro-immigrants. It's why Callie House's org fought for ex-slaves in the USA to get a pension. Queen Mother Orly Moore fought for slavery descendants to get reparations and had a separate organization dedicated to the interests of Afro-immigrants and the diaspora. Malcolm X gave a speech at Michigan State advocating for reparations for those that built the country. Dr. King called us descendants of slaves and said we were going to Washington to get our check since this government was propping up immigrants to our detriment. Randall Robinson, founder of Trans-Africa, advocated for the continent and Caribbean and wrote The Debt, what white America owes blacks, where he lays out a lineage-based claim. So when it sounds like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, while you're focused on the ABCs that you missed the nuance that would have taken you to ABCD. D is for the damages and debt. Oh, I got 2 seconds left.
Thank
D
you.
is for, don't we see
All right.
2 seconds?
All right, Mr. Devine. We
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Chantel, you are next, and then Kamara is next.
Stories. Evanston in California already have laid a pipeline for what you can do. So really, I need you all to be responsive, get the calendar, change up these times, really interact, do the interactive communication so we all can sit around the table and really do what you're supposed to do. Because us coming up here in this way is not going to be helpful for you. It's not going to let you get that report out in time. And it really is shooting the entire New York State reparations movement in the foot if you all can't get it together.
Thank you. Ms. Hardy, this quick question. What times do you suggest?
If you're going to do it, I would say from 6 on. The only reason the people said 7. The only reason I would say 6 is because I know that.
Wait a minute. I just wanted to get this really quickly.
One mic.
Thank you.
Okay. I will give you 6 o'clock because I do realize that you have electives and all of that. It seems that the majority of people here are saying 7, so let's rock with 7.
No, they're saying Saturday.
They're saying Saturday.
Thank you.
So I would say start at 6 so you can do all that you usually
Starting
do.
at 6 o'clock on a Saturday, that's what you all are saying?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Time out. Can I say it? If you're going to do it in the evenings, it needs to start at 6.
And end what time?
At
end
6
what time?
p.m.
And end what time?
I think people are willing to roll to 9 or 10 if they can get here. But look at this turnout. This is Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Historical Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. There's no reason
Thank you,
why
Ms.
this
Hardy.
looks like that.
I appreciate
Saturday,
you.
so evenings and weekends.
Thank you. So next we're going to have... Can you share your name? Thank you for being here.
Keisha Forrester.
Okay, Keisha, thank you.
First, before I get started, I just want y'all to know, I wish the communications secretary would not have left because the majority of the stream on YouTube, the sound has been out. So, and it's been out. And I'm still listening, it's still cutting in on and off. Also, from the business meeting, she talked about legacy media reaching out to Amsterdam News, maybe Our Time Press, but that's dead. New independent black media like Doggy Diamonds TV or Viral Access Media would have had this place filled in a matter of minutes. You gotta use what's in your hands, as Adam Clayton Powell Jr. once said. Y'all not using what's in your hands. But it's been a while since I've been to this church. The last time was in 1988 when the Brawley family sought refuge in the sanctuary here, and their attorney was Alton H. Maddox Jr.
Clarification, the Brawley family did not seek refuge here. Reverend Dr. William Augustus Jones Jr., when the Brawley family was being kicked out of a church up in the Bronx, literally drove up there when Al Sharpton called and said, I have nowhere to go, and the police are coming for her. He drove up there, put them in his car, and brought them back here.
Facts.
He took care of them.
Facts. And I'm also aware of your Uncle Lewis Clayton Jones as well, because I was around back then. So just to let y'all know, I am Brooklyn. Brooklyn thorough. From my head to toe, I am dressed with garments and footwear created by foundational Black Americans. I just don't talk this, I live it. My great-great-grandmothers are buried right here in Brooklyn, exactly 2.5 miles from where I live. One of my great-grandmothers was an employee of mobster Lucky Luciano. I don't claim to be gangster, but I am thorough, so I'm just letting y'all know that. Prior to gentrification, there's always an influx of immigration. My grandparents and great-grandparents had to deal with the Irish, had to deal with the Italians, and the Puerto Ricans, who became landlords and kicked them out. My grandmother and great-grandmother had to physically fight them because they called them the N-word every chance they get. So the precursor of gentrification is always immigration. And I'm gonna land there. The next time y'all come, be Brooklyn thorough, you heard?
All right. So, thank you. Keisha Forrester, if you don't mind leaving us the list of the names of media, we would appreciate that. And we're asking for that. We're asking for your support. So if you have emails that you want to share with us, we will certainly reach out. So thank you. Are you...
Amen. Okay. Peace and love. My name is Rashid Littlejohn, founder of a group called the Green Campaign, also a member of New Yorkers for Reparations. I'm going to start with my recommendations. Me and my team, who are all descendants of those enslaved in this country, are raising funding to get a community center that's been shut down since COVID. And we need funding to do that type of work, right? Because we don't have the welfare. So a part of that is direct cash payments for the descendant community is a recommendation, and it should be seen as one. Community block grants is a recommendation for descendant communities. So buildings like this, we can access millions of dollars to be able to get the buildings that are being held in our communities by people that are not like us, and not willing to create reasonable terms for us to even lease properties that sit in our communities abandoned until we get gentrified out. We would also like lineage specificity when it comes to business ownership, right? Because we understand that there's a big issue with being Black-owned businesses. You have a lot of people utilizing the term Black to harvest and to steal from Black Americans. So we would like to see descendant-based communities, and we know we're the supporting businesses that are for descendants of those enslaved. We would also like a easier pathway for organizations that are established by the descendants, like nonprofits, to be able to get upfront capital and not have to rely on reimbursements. Because if you get a grant for $50,000 to $100,000, but you have to spend that money first in order to get it back, we're talking about communities that already don't have that equity in the neighborhood. Right? So descendants need access to those funds. And lastly, of the recommendations of many that I have is a state endowment fund for Black historic sites. We're talking about business district reestablishments that are able to sustain the 400 years that Black people have been in this country. The timeline starts in 1624 in this country that Black people have been here. So I want to say that those are the recommendations that far.
Thank you.
I'm not done.
Mr. Littlejohn.
That's just my recommendations.
Okay.
I got 28 minutes.
Go ahead, 28 seconds. Go ahead.
So again, my name is Rashid Littlejohn. I'm a 12th generation descendant. 12 generations. The 4th governor of this state was Sir Edmund Andros. He enslaved my descendants' family and brought them to New York, then trafficked them to Maryland and then to South Carolina. My last name is Littlejohn Pinckney. The other one is Charles Carsworth Pinckney, a signer of the Declaration of Independence. My family has been
Mr.
here,
Littlejohn.
and we are looking for a repair. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go into the reading of A5603, State of New York, in Assembly, 2025-2026, regular session, February 18th, 2025, introduced by M. of A. Lucas, read once and referred to the Committee on Governmental Operations. An act to acknowledge New York State's role in the fundamental injustice and inhumanity of the institution of slavery, to establish the New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies, to examine all aspects of slavery, subsequent de jure and de facto racial, social, and economic discrimination against American freedmen and the impact of these forces on living American freedmen, and to make determinations regarding compensation and repair. To establish a New York State's Freedmen's Bureau charged with the distribution of reparations and reparative justice passed in legislature by the state, and making an appropriation therefore, and providing for the repeal of certain provisions upon expiration thereof. The people of the state of New York, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1. This act shall be known and be cited as the New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies Act. 2. Legislative intent. The legislature makes the following findings and declarations. A. Approximately 450,000 Africans were trafficked and enslaved in the United States in the colonies that became the United States from 1619 to 1865 inclusive. At the peak of slavery, their descendants numbered 4 million. B. The institution of slavery was constitutionally and statutorily sanctioned by the United States from 1776 through 1865 inclusive. C. The chattel slavery that flourished in the United States constituted an immoral and inhumane deprivation of Africans' life, liberty, citizenship rights, and cultural heritage, and denied them the fruits of their own labor. D. A preponderance of scholarly, legal, and community evidentiary documentation, as well as popular culture markers, constitute the basis for inquiry into the ongoing effects of the institution of slavery and its legacy, embodied in persistent systemic structures of discrimination on living descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, American freedmen. E. Contrary to what many people believe, slavery was not just a Southern institution. Prior to the American Revolution, there were more enslaved Africans in New York City than any other city except Charleston, South Carolina. During this period, slaves accounted for 20% of the population of New York, and approximately 40% of colonial New York households owned slaves. In 1799, the New York State Legislature passed an act for the gradual abolition of slavery, quote unquote. This legislation was a first step in the direction of emancipation, but did not have an immediate effect on or affect all enslaved people. Rather, it provided for gradual manumission. All children born to enslaved women after July 4th, 1799 would be freed, but only after their most productive years, age 28 for men and age 25 for women. Enslaved persons already in servitude before July 4th, 1799 were reclassified as, quote, indentured servants, end quote, but in reality remained enslaved for the duration of their lives. In 1817, the legislature enacted a statute that gave freedom to New York enslaved people who had been born before July 4th, 1799. This statute did not become effective until July 4th, 1827. However, despite these laws, there were exceptions under which certain persons could still own slaves. Non-residents could enter New York with slaves for up to 9 months, and part-time residents were allowed to bring their slaves into the state temporarily. The 9-month exception remained law until its repeal in 1841, when the North was redefining itself as the, quote, free, end quote, region in advance of the Civil War. F. Following the abolition of slavery, the United States government at the federal, state, and local levels continued to perpetuate, condone, and often profit from practices that maintain brutalization and disadvantage for descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, American freedmen, including but not limited to black codes, sharecropping, convict leasing, Jim Crow laws, lynching, redlining, unequal education, etc. G. As a result of the badges and incidences of slavery, Jim Crow, and continued targeted discriminatory policy, the descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, American freedmen, continue to suffer debilitating economic, educational, and health hardships. Section 3, definition. For the purposes of this act, the term American freedmen shall mean those persons who have at least one ancestor that was enslaved in the United States of America, who was emancipated in 1863 by way of the Emancipation Proclamation, or in 1865 by way of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, and have been despoiled their rights as citizens due to the badges, incidents, and vestiges of slavery. Section 4, establishment, purpose, and duties of the task force. A. Establishment. There is hereby established the New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies, which may be referred to in this act as the task force, quote, end quote. Duties. The task force shall perform the following duties. Study the current condition of individuals who descend from persons enslaved in the United States, American freedmen, both across the nation generally and in the state of New York specifically as a result of A. The de jure and de facto discrimination against American freedmen and their descendants from the end of the Civil War to the present, including economic, political, educational, and social discrimination. B. The lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery and discrimination on living descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, American freedmen. C. The manner in which instructional resources and technologies are being used to deny the inhumanity of slavery and the crime against humanity committed against descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, American freedmen, in New York State and the United States. D. The larger role of Northern complicity in the disproportionately Southern-based institution of slavery. 1. The state of New York mercantile merchants profited immensely from the sale of raw cotton to European mills transported from the southern states. 2. New York business people assisted planters in purchasing the land, slave workers, and tools they used to labor. New York's textile industry specialized in the cloth slaves wore called, quote, Negro-cloth, end quote. 4. New York manufactured whips that overseers wielded, the books that planters read, and the finery plantation mistresses prized. 5. New York lenders loaned money to allow planters to purchase slaves and insurance to protect their investments. 6. New York invested in transatlantic, international, and coastal shipping lines that shipped between southern ports in New York. E. The direct benefits of slavery and discrimination to societal institution, public and private, including higher education, corporate, religious, and associational. 2. Develop reparations remedies from which New York ratified the U.S. Constitution and entered the Union as the 11th state in 1788. 3. Recommend appropriate ways to educate the New York and American public of the task force's findings. 4. Recommend appropriate remedies in consideration of the task force's findings on the matters described in this section, including, but not limited to, A. Determine how the state of New York will offer a formal apology on behalf of the people of New York for the perpetuation of gross human rights violations and crimes against humanity on individuals who descend from persons enslaved in the United States. B. Document the injuries resulting from matters described in the subdivision can be reversed and how to provide appropriate policies, programs, projects, and recommendations for the purpose of reversal of the injuries. C. Propose the form and scope the measures should be taken from the task force findings in consideration of the task force's findings. any other form of recompense to descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, American freedmen, are warranted, and what form and scope those measures should take. Draft a resolution on how the state of New York can advocate the adoption of a national plan for reparations for descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. That was D. 5. Submit a preliminary report of its findings to the legislature no later than 16 months after the date of the first meeting of the task force. The final report of its recommendations shall be submitted to the legislature no later than 14 months after the preliminary report is submitted. 6. Designate individuals who are American freedmen as a population that will be the focus and sole beneficiaries of the task force's analysis. 7. Ensure that reparations proposals adhere to the 5 forms of reparations as defined by international law. A. Compensation. B. Rehabilitation. C. Restitution. D. Satisfaction. And E. Guarantees of non-repetition. Section 5. Membership of the task force. A. Appointment of members. 1. The task force shall be composed of 11 members who shall be appointed within 90 days after the effective date of this act as follows. A. 5 members shall be appointed by the governor, and B. 3 members each shall be appointed by the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the Assembly. 2. The governor's appointees shall include all of the following. A. 1 appointee from the field of academia that has expertise in civil rights. B. 1 appointee with expertise working to implement racial justice reform. C. 2 appointees from grassroots organizations that are presently championing the cause of reparatory justice for American freedmen. D. 1 appointee who is an expert in constitutional law. 3. No more than 4 members of the legislature shall be on the task force. 4. Task force members shall be in support of American freedmen. Lineage-based reparations. B. Qualification of members. All members shall have demonstrated through prior community service and or professional activities that they represent the interests of American freedmen within communities throughout the state, possess expertise, at least in the fields of history, civil rights, law, economics, and psychology, and to the extent possible, represent geographically diverse areas of the state. C. Meetings of the task force. 1. The governor shall call the first meeting no later than 30 days after the members of the task force have been appointed. 2. 6 members of the task force shall constitute a quorum. 3. The task force shall elect a chair and vice chair from among its members. The term of the office of each shall be for the life of the task force. D. Compensation. 1. The members of the task force shall receive no compensation for their service as members, but shall be reimbursed for their actual and necessary expenses incurred in the performance of their duties. 2. For attendance at meetings during adjournment of the legislature, a legislative member of the task force shall be entitled to per diem compensation and reimbursement of expenses upon appropriation by the legislature. 3. Non-legislative members of the task force shall be entitled to per diem compensation and reimbursement of expenses upon appropriation by the legislature. Section 6. Powers of the task force. A. Powers. Generally, the task force, for the purpose of carrying out the provisions of this act, has authority to 1. Create subcommittees. 2. Create its own bylaws. And 3. Hold such hearings and sit and act at such times and at such places in the United States as the task force considers appropriate. 4. Request the production of books, records, correspondence, memoranda, papers, and documents. Seek an order from a superior court compelling testimony or compliance with a subpoena. B. Powers of the subcommittees and members. Any subcommittee or member of the task force may, if authorized by the task force, take any action which the task force is authorized to take by this section. C. Obtaining official data. The task force may acquire directly from the head of any state agency or instrumentality of the state available information which the task force considers useful in the discharge of its duties. All departments, agencies, and instrumentalities of the state shall cooperate with the task force with respect to such information and shall furnish all information requested by the task force to the extent permitted by law. The task force shall keep confidential any information received from a state agency that is meant to be confidential or exempt from Article 6 of the Public Officers Law. Section 7, termination. The task force shall terminate 90 days after the date on which the task force submits its final report to the legislature as provided in paragraphs 5 of subdivision B of Section 4 of this Act. Section 8, administrative provisions. A. The task force may appoint and fix the compensation of such personnel as the task force considers appropriate. B. The task force shall have the administrative, technical, and legal assistance of the state. C. The task force may procure supplies, services, and property by contract in accordance with applicable laws and rules, including but not limited to sections 103 and 104 of the General Municipal Law. D. The task force may enter into contracts for the purposes of conducting research or surveys, preparing reports, and performing other activities necessary for the discharge of the duties of the task force with state departments, agencies, and other instrumentalities, federal departments, agencies, and other instrumentalities, and private entities. Section 9. New York State Freedmen's Bureau. There is hereby established the New York State Freedmen's Bureau, which may be referred to in this act as the Freedmen's Bureau, charged with the distribution of reparations and reparative justice as recommended by the task force and further passed in legislation by the state. In addition, the Bureau shall focus on, but not be limited to, genealogical research, community life, education, and workforce development for American freedmen. The Bureau's initial tasks upon formation will be genealogical research specifically for connecting American freedmen with their lineage. Also, during the task force existence, the Bureau shall serve to take on all genealogical work directed by the task force. Once the task force concludes, its findings and recommendations will direct the continued scope of the New York Freedmen's Bureau, which will be tasked with being the central administrator of programs recommended by the Task Force for American Freedmen, which become law. Section 10, federal reparations. Any state-level reparation actions that are undertaken as a result of this task force are not a replacement for any reparations enacted at the federal level and shall not be interpreted as such. I'm going to repeat that. Section 10, federal reparations. Any state-level reparations actions that are undertaken as a result of this task force are not a replacement for any reparations enacted at the federal level and shall not be interpreted as such. Section 11, budget monies appropriated for the New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies and the New York State Freedmen's Bureau shall be distributed as follows. A. New York Freedmen's Bureau, $50 million per fiscal year. New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies, $22 million in parentheses, which shall be used as follows. 1. Member reimbursement, $250,000, parentheses. Member reimbursement shall not exceed $250,000 over the life of the task force. Recipients shall be required for any reimbursement and only pre-authorized expenses shall be recovered from any funds appropriated to the task force. 2. Expert witnesses, travel, lodging, and incidental costs, $500,000. 3. Marketing, $10 million. 4. Community outreach and education, $10 million. 5. Administrative staff, equipment, and office space, $1,250,000. 12. Appropriation, the sum of $72 million, or so much thereof as may be necessary, is hereby appropriated to the New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies and the New York Freedmen's Bureau from any monies in the state treasury in the general fund to the credit of the state purposes account not otherwise appropriated for the purposes of carrying out the provisions of this act. Such sum shall be payable on the audit and warrant of the state comptroller on vouchers certified or approved by the chair of the New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies, or the director of the New York State Freedmen's Bureau, or their duty designated representative in the manner provided by law. Section 13. This act shall take effect immediately, and sections 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of this act shall expire and be deemed repealed 90 days after the New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies submits its final report to the legislature, as provided in paragraph 5 of subdivision B of section 4 of this act, provided that the chair of the New York State American Freedmen Task Force on Reparations Remedies shall notify the Legislative Bill Drafting Commission upon the submission of its report as provided in paragraph 5 of subdivision B of section 4 of this act, in order that the commission may maintain an accurate and timely effective database of the official text of the laws of the state of New York in furtherance of effectuating the provisions of section 44 of the legislative law and section 70B of the Public Officers Law. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe right here on Amen the Mass Media Group. And to keep up to date on everything reparations, go ahead and hit that bell. And we look forward to seeing you next time. As always, peace and reparations.